Hello, my name is Arnaud Delorme, and through this series of tutorials, I'm going to guide through a real data processing session. So I'm going to tackle some data I've never processed before and try to process it from start to finish. Here in this specific video, we're going to take raw data and we're going to format it to BIDS and then post it publicly. And the reason I do that is that often you see tutorials and the data is idealized and everybody has tons of problems when we process data. So here we will see all the problems I will encounter, and we're going to be using Matlab and EEGLab software. So it assumes you have Matlab. You could also use the compiled version of EEGLab either on Windows, Mac, or Linux, because it has the BIDS plugin and you can run script. So you don't necessarily need to have Matlab, although it's much easier with Matlab. So let's get going. So this is the meditation task I've been trying to convert for a couple of years. We collected the data more than 10 years ago, and I actually released the raw data on my website. There's a direct link to the PDF files, but it wasn't documented properly or formatted properly. So here we're going to package it into a BIDS format. So it's the brain imaging data structure format. It's a format that has lots of metadata, and so that people can reuse the dataset. So we'll see how we can format that data. So here, first I'm going to describe the experiment a little bit. So here we have different meditation traditions, and we have Vipassana, which is a type of body scan meditation technique. We have Isha, which is a meditation a bit like Zen, which focuses on just sitting. Then we also have the Himalayan tradition, which is a mantra-based tradition, which means the meditators repeat the same sentence. And then we have controls, and we also have a couple of transcendental meditation folks. The data was acquired in India over the course of 2 years. There is a total of 98 subjects. There's a bit more, but some we won't be able to include. So let me describe a little bit the experiment. So there's different blocks of data. We do IMW, instructed mind wandering, and meditation afterwards. And there's actually 2 blocks of that, instructed mind wandering and meditation. And sometimes some subjects start with instructed mind wandering and then do the meditation. Sometimes they start with meditation and then do the instructed mind wandering. So the order is randomized across subjects. And there's 2 blocks of that. And the first block, they're doing a breath counting meditation. So it's the same meditation for everybody, all the meditation traditions and all the control subjects. And then in the second block, they do the meditation in their own tradition. And so we're going to include both blocks here. On the diagrams, we only see one of the 2 blocks. And actually in the paper, we only process the first block where everybody is doing the same meditation. We haven't processed the data for the second block. So each block is about 10 minutes. So that's a total of about 40 minutes of data for that experiment. So you can see here the files we're dealing with. So we have the files are in 4 folders. We have a folder for the Med 1, first meditation. We have a folder for Med 2, second meditation, Think 1, and Think 2. And inside each folder, we have all the data files for all the subjects. And they have different names based on the group of subject. Then we have this subject files, which is an Excel file, which was prepared by our research assistant. And we see we have different tabs, 1 tab for control, 1 tab for TM, 1 tab for Vipassana. So we're going to have to organize this file to be able to export it to BIDS. First, I have a copy of this file. So first I'm going to delete some of the columns which are not necessary. Actually, I had to cut the video here because the name of the subject was still in the file. So I didn't want to publish that online. So I removed it, and we'll come back to that file in a second. To export data, what I usually do is that I write a script. Here we have 98 subjects, so that's a lot of subjects. So if we export it them using the GUI, the graphical interface of EEGLAB, would take a long time. So we're going to write a script, and there is actually free example script, BIDS example 1, 2, and 3. They're included in the BIDS plugin of EEGLAB, so you would need to download the BIDS plugin from the EEGLAB manager. And at this moment, I don't know which one to use, so I'm just going to open them all. I wrote them, but I don't actually remember what they do. This is the first one. So this one is for a data set that was published on OpenNeuro, so it's 1787. And it's also a meditation data set. Then we have the second one, which is actually the one I'm going to use because the data was acquired the same location, so it's very similar data. And then there's the third one. The third one I'm just ignoring because the third one just exports the tutorial data set. So that's the one we'll use here, the BIDS example 2. And we're going to modify that file for this specific data. You have access to these files, so you can do the same if you want. So I'm going to save this file under a new name. I'm going to call it BIDS export med. And I'm going to start to edit that file. So first remove some of the comments. We're also going to change the date so it matches the date of today. And then also I'm going to reference the original paper, so just copy and paste the paper here. And now I'm thinking of my best angle of attack for that data. First, I want to rename the folders because I don't like to have space in the folder. This creates all kinds of problems when you're programming. So I'm replacing the space with underscore. And you'll see later that actually helps for some of the processing. Then I'm going to look at the folder content in Matlab. So I just do a dir, which is the way to look at the folder content. And then actually I can use a system command to just list them on one line. So this way I just have the file names. And I'm just going to copy these files into Excel sheets, because then I can format them so I can put them in the Matlab script. So here I start Excel and I copy paste the content of Matlab. Then I'm going to remove the icon, so some of the files that Matlab Mac creates. And then I'm going to add the content from the other folder. So I'm listing the content of the Med2 folder, and then again copying and pasting that to Excel. I'm going to remove the icon file, which I don't want to process. So once I'm done here, I'm thinking about my next step. And I think if I want to be able to read these files in the Matlab, I need to have their full file name with the folder, and I need to convert it into a Matlab string that I can process in the Matlab. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to insert a column and then add the name of the folder in the first column, and I'm going to do that for all the files. So the first folder name, copying and pasting in the first column. You see that I have a blank line in between the different folders, and so this is so I could see where they start and where they end. But I'm going to remove this line as soon as I'm done copying and pasting the folder name. And here it's a little bit sped up because this took a little while. So now I'm done. So I'm going to remove these rows because I don't need them anymore. And then the next step is I'm going to create a string that Matlab can understand. So for this, I just used an Excel command to concatenate. First, I need to put a quote at the beginning. Then I need to put a separator. Here I'm under Mac, so I used /. And this string Matlab can understand. So now I'm gonna copy and paste it for all the lines, and now I'm ready to copy and paste this in the Matlab. So I'm going to create a new files, and then I'm going to put the list of files right here in the Matlab file. Now I'm going to save the file, so prepare for BIDS, and I'm going to run it. So okay, no error, so this runs, no syntax error. I'm also going to save the Excel file just in case I need it in the future. So this is great. I have the file inside Matlab. Now I'm thinking about my next step. And the next step is really to try to fuse these data files with the Excel file. So I'm just exploring a little bit the Excel file and how I could put that into Matlab to try to reconcile with the file name and pair the two. And so what I'm going to do, here we have the different tabs for the different subjects. The first thing is I need to put all the subject on the same tabs, and I need to remove the columns which are not that useful. So to fuse the file, the first thing would be to create a column with the group, because right now I just have a column for subject, but I don't have a column for the group. And I thought, well, I could just extract the string from the subject number. And so I was searching for a stat string in Excel. So there's a function that's called left. So to extract the group from the subject name. Then I decided to clean up that tab a little bit. So there is all this information that's not useful here. So delete. There is this string here that says a special comment about subjects. So I decided to keep it and put it on top. And then you remove these rows which are not informative. I removed one too much here, so going back. And now I'm going to put the other subjects, so the control ones, underneath the Himalayan subject. So again, I'm trying to extract the subject number from the subject name. I'm also here checking this subject 33, and because it didn't have all the information, I was wondering, well, maybe is it in the data here? So it's missing some of the information. You see some columns are not populated for 33. I'm checking with the subject 44. It's not 34, so I'm deleting all these lines, and now I can copy it to the first tab. Just checking some information here that's left in the file. Doesn't seem to be very important, just deleting it. And I'm going to copy this to the first tab, and now I have both the Himalayan and the control subjects. I'm going to spare you the fusioning of all the different tabs, and we're going to go directly under Matlab to try to load that files that has all the subjects in the first sheet. And here we see there's an error when I try to read the Matlab files because of Unicode character. I try to resave it as tab delimited instead because I thought it would be easier to load it just with tabs. And I use the function, it's EEGLAB function, to load file text. Now it doesn't show well. It's because I have to change the type of delimiter. So you see there's empty character. So I'm going to open the text file under Excel and then fix the columns. So apparently the subject is duplicated here for the Himalayan tradition. So I just removed the column for this specific tradition, and now it looks more uniform. I also edited the file to change the number. Sometimes it says 5 to 6 hours of sleep, so it's better to put 6.5. So I changed all that for the sleep. I also changed the education, so I converted the numbers to number of years for all that columns. So I'm going to skip through that. Also for the number of hours, years of meditation, sometimes there's text in that column, so I just made it uniform. For male, female, sometimes they were male instead of M, so I replaced that in the entire file. There were also some issues with the ethnicity column, so I removed any ethnicity, only keeping Caucasian and Indian. The other ones were too rare. And then finally, I edited the notes, making sure they were understandable, removing some of the notes which were relevant. And now I'm back on Matlab. So just looking at the file, looking that all the columns look fine. And so I can import it and try to fuse it with the file names I already have. So now I'm getting ready to fuse the two. I'm going to call the data from the Excel file info. I'm going to scan the file. And then I realize the file names are going to be different because sometimes I have 3 characters, sometimes I have 4 characters. So if I really want to compare the name of the subjects between the Excel file and the file name, I decided all the file names, all the subject names should be 3 character. And then the number of the subject should be 2 character, for also 0, 1 instead of 1, etc. Then the Himalayan was just 2 character HT, so I decided to make HTR. This would be the same number of character for all subjects, and I thought this would be just easier to extract the subject name and the subject index if they are all the same size. I could have also written a script to handle the different length, but I thought it would just be easier this way. So now I'm going to write the script to extract the subject name. So first I have to find the index of the slash character. And then once I have the index of the slash character, I have to find the index of the underscore character. And I know that the subject name is between the first slash character and the second underscore character. And so I'm extracting the subject name, and I'm going to print that on the command line to check that I have the right subject name. So here I'm checking on the command line. I didn't put the index right. I'm fixing the index. Okay, so that seems right. So now I have my subject name from the data files, and I can try to fuse that with the information file. So now I'm going back to the Excel file, and I also have to change the name. I'm just going to do some quick replacement. And I shortened this because it took me a while to replace all the names. And now I'm back in Matlab, and I'm going to see if I can find the same subject in the info file. So I just use this function strmatch and then search for the subject that comes from the data file. And then I'm going to print found or not found for the subject, in case I'm able to find it or not find it, and then go from there to see what I can do next. So the script is done now, and I'm just going to run it. And so it says not found for everybody. Some are empty at first, so I have to check that why they're empty. So I went back and forth between the Excel version, the text version, and the file to try to resolve all the issue. And finally, I was able to get to a state where all the subjects from the subject files were found in the Excel file. So I'm back in the script, and now I want to do the reverse. I want to scan the text file and check if there is a file name for this. So first, I'm going to extract the subject name from the file. So it's in the first column. And then I realized actually, if I want to match it, I have to generate a list of files which doesn't have the folder name, because the function in Matlab that search for files is actually we'll find a match if the beginning of the string matches the subject string. So I have to make sure that the file name starts with the name of the subject. So here I have files 2, which contains the list of files, but without the folders. And now I can use this strmatch function, and I can check. I'm going to count the number of files which have a match. This way, I want 4 files per subject because we have 4 blocks. I'm commenting the first section of code because I don't want to run it. Also, I like to add comments so I remember what I've done. And so here I had comment to the next section. And now I'm going to run it to count the number of files. There's a little typo right here, which I just fixed. I think there's another one after that. Yeah, another small typo. So this is live coding. So that's why, sometimes you have problems. So here it finds 4 files for most subjects, and there are subjects with 5 files. So for example, htr3 has 5 files. So I'm going to double check why this subject has 5 files. And so here I'm searching for htr03, and we can see here in the med2 there's 5 files. So I'm just going to check the raw data files. Why does he have 2 files here? And one doesn't have the right name for it, and one has the right name, so the extension medit versus med. So I'm just going to remove the med files. Also, the med file seems to be twice bigger. It is possible it was a previous version of the same files at a higher sampling frequency. In any case, I'm going to remove this second file which doesn't have the right file name. And now I have to remove the same file in the script, so it just counts to 4. Rerunning the script, checking that all are 4. And I also want to modify the script actually to indicate an error if there's no 4 files. So I'm just checking if the length is 4, and if it's 4, I print it's okay. If it's not 4, I'm going to indicate an error for that specific file. So I see a couple of errors, and as long as it's 0, it's fine. It just means that none of the files are present. I notice that none of the TM meditator, transcendental meditators, are present, which is fine. I guess the files have not been included. Now the next step is to generate the list of subjects and the characteristics of the subject for my exporting script. So that's going to be my next project here. And I start with index 2 because the first row is the header, so that's the name of the columns. I also want to avoid converting the data when I read it. So I turn the conversion off. This way it doesn't convert the string to numerical, and I think it's just going to be easier to export. So these are my column names. Here I just want to check they're okay. I don't want any space in my column names, and I also want them to correspond to what they should be in the script. So for this I'm just going to look for another BIDS file, so another participant.tsv file. Just checking, okay, I need participant ID here instead of subjects. So I'm just going to edit the text file, just change the column name to what it should be, gender, age, lowercase, and also reordering columns so they're in my desired order. I'm also going to put the column I'm not going to use, like date, at the end, and all the ones which I'm going to use, I'm going to put first. I'm back to my script, and now I'm going to write the text output that I would like to insert into my other Matlab script. So I need first to write the column names. I only first want the first 10 columns, so that's why I put them first in the Excel file. And then I want to scan them and print them on the command line. I'm checking the format as well as it should look like. And it took me about a minute to write that section of the script, and now I'm ready to run it. And the first time I ran it, I realized I had forgotten some carriage returns, so I'm adding them here and rerunning the script, and now we can see how it's going to finally look like. I realized there was a problem with double quotes, and I knew this would be a problem with Matlab. In some of the notes there were double quotes, so I wanted to remove these. So I wrote some text to that effect, and I also wanted to remove the single quotes, which also create a problem with Matlab. So I removed them, I replaced them with a space character. And now I'm ready to copy and paste the text I just generated to the BIDS scripts. I'm just replacing the old text. I also realized that BIDS doesn't understand empty values, and instead I have to put non-value whenever there is the string is empty. So I'm just regenerating the text and copying and pasting and replacing the text I just added. Then I realized I don't really want to export all the subjects. I only want to export the subjects which have 4 files, because some of the subjects in the text file had 0 files. So I'm modifying the script right here to just include subjects which have 4 files. I'm rerunning it and copying and pasting again the text for a subject which have 4 files. So I'm done with that section, and now I need to generate the list of files. So this is how it looks like in the original file. So I need to generate something similar to this. So I'm going back to my first loop and generating some text which looks like this. And I have to first put the 4 data files into a cell array data of files. And so here I'm going to put the 4 files. So the file for the med1, med2, think1, and think2. Now I need to set up the task. So mid-bref, mid2, think1, and think2. And let's see what else I have to do in the file. Session and run. So session, I'm going to set it to 111, and run, I'm going to set it to 111 as well. For think, I could set think, run 1 and run 2, but because I didn't do it for meditation, I just keep it as different tasks. And so I'm just, fine-tuning the carriage return, and now I'm ready to replace in the text file. And I'm going to change the metadata now. So the name of the task is going to be meditation versus think. I'm copying the journal article, then the authors, and then changing the description for the column. Then it struck me that actually I had renamed the files in the Matlab program, but not in the folders. So I proceeded to first rename the file in the folder, and then realized it's going to be too much work and I needed to just automate this. So I reopened this Excel file I had at the beginning, and I copied the Matlab content and the original file name. And then I added, I had to remove the HT22, which was the bad subject. And then I added a column with MV, which is common to move the file. I tried to copy that on the command line. So I'm copying content from 3 column, MV, the first file name, and then the target file name, but it didn't work because when it pasted, it didn't add the space. So I just wrote a macro to concatenate the 3 columns and adding a space, and then it seemed to work. So I copied and pasted all the files. I also tried to back up the folder just in case, but it was 53 megabytes, and since I had it on the cloud, I just gave up. So I copied and pasted on the command line, and everything worked okay. There was a couple of files which were not copied properly, so I had to go back and fix that. And eventually what I ended up doing is going back to the script, and when I converted to the file without the folder, I added some code to check that the file existed. And if it existed, I wrote OK. If it didn't exist, I wrote XX. So I could check which files were OK and which files were not OK, and then went back and fixed them all to make sure that all the files I had in my Matlab program were also on disk. Now I'm back in the export script, editing the metadata, so the type of meditators, ethnicity, so description of the different ethnicities, copying and pasting. So we have also sleep, number of hours of sleep, and the unit is hours, and then education level, and there the unit is years. So I just was describing all the different columns. And so once I'm done with that, I'm going to be almost ready to export the data. However, before I do that, there's a whole section about events. And here, I don't have any events. These files are just blocks. So it actually makes it simpler. And so I have to edit the export command to remove all these events and all this information. I don't need. I don't need to copy the data either. So I'm just removing all these lines. Now I realize I need to add the task instructions. And so I looked at the BIDS export file, and to do that, I have to add a field instructions. So that's what I do. I just edit my original script, the one I copied to the export script. I put a short description of each meditation tradition or thinking period. And there's more in the paper, so I didn't feel I had to put a lot of details, but still. And so I'm re-executing the script and copy and pasting into the original script. Now, in addition to task instruction, there is also task description. And I did a little bit of research, and the script I wrote to export the data, the BIDS plugin, doesn't allow to set task description when there is multiple tasks. So I just decided to let it go and not add the task description. I'm back editing a little bit the README files to give the description of different tasks. So I'm writing the description here, and I'm also going to copy and paste this description to Grammarly just to check for errors, grammatical errors that I might have made. Although I was always good at math, I was never really good at spelling. And then I copy and paste the results in Matlab. And I like to copy and paste whenever I have a command, just making sure there's no syntax error. Here I'm also including my export script. So it is exported along with the data. Also, I uncommented these 2 lines of code. So it would just export the 3 first subject. I don't want to export the 98 subject at once. I just want to run the script a couple of times, making sure it works with a couple of subjects. So I'm now running the script, and I realize there's typo in one of the columns. So I'm going to go back in the column description and just see was an extra space here. And now it's exporting the data. So it's only going to export 3 subjects, but at least I'll be able to check if it's correct or not. So the data has been exported. Just looking at the file, do they look correct or not? And then the next step is to run the BIDS validator. So I'm going back online and I type BIDS validator on Google, end up on the BIDS validator website, select the folder and check if it's valid or not. So it seems to be valid. There is one warning about event file. So I realized that some of the data had events, even though these are blocks. Sometimes there are spurious events. So I need to remove all these events. So what I choose to do is actually edit the plugin itself. It's convenient that I programmed it. So I added a parameter to remove all events. So that's a new parameter. And it's going to delete all the events. So I'm editing the functions here. And I'm going to add the parameter, even though before I programmed it, I'm going to add the parameter to my BIDS export script. And so I searched a little bit in the file where I should put this command to remove the events. And I figure out after importing the EEG data and before exporting event, I'm just going to erase event if this field is set. So I compared I check if it's on, and if it's on, I just remove the events. And now I'm going to export the data again, and hopefully there won't be any events. I'm going to check with the BIDS validator again if there's events. So in here we can see that the warning is gone. There is no more warning. So now I'm ready to export all the data files. So I'm going to comment these lines where I just select a 3 first data set, and I'm going to run the whole script. It actually takes about half an hour to run the whole script. And the reason is that the script needs to import each EEG dataset. First in the BDF, it makes sure to anonymize the data. There's a subject field in the BDF files. Also, it needs to import the data to check the channels and re-export the channel labels for BIDS. So the data needs to be imported anyway. So that's why it's so long. There's more than 1,000 files here. And actually the script ended up crashing. There's a file that seemed to be corrupted. So I decided to look at this in a little bit more detail. So what I ended up doing is to look at the file itself, just the binary. So I have IX, which is an editor of the raw data. And you see these files start with INDX parentheses, and normal files start with biosemi because they're biosemi file. So this file seems to be corrupted. It's not a standard file. And when I did some research on the internet, I realized that this is a common error when copying Windows file, and that there is pretty much nothing to do. You have to go back to the original file and copy it again. So this file was corrupted for good. So I went into some backup disk and I tried to copy it from the backup disk, but it ended up being corrupted in the same way. The good thing about the backup disk though is that I was able to find the transcendental meditator. Remember, I had to exclude these, so I added the transcendental meditator back into the export script. So after I removed the bad subject, so HT22, and added the 4 transcendental meditators, I rerun the whole script, waited half an hour, and this time it worked. So I'm going to run the BIDS validator again, and now it passes all validation. So about 54 gigabytes of data, 1,000 files, 98 subject. So now I'm going to go to OpenNeuro. So I'm going to log into my account and then look at my API key. That's a key that allows me to upload data from the command line using the OpenNeuro client interface. So I just type OpenNeuro login and then ask for my key, and I enter the key and then I'm logged in. By the way, it doesn't matter that much that you saw my key because I can regenerate a new one and this one will be invalid. So you have to download the OpenNeuro client interface, but it's actually the most reliable tool to upload data. But I figure out I'm going to try actually the upload dataset button online. Why not? And here there's an error. So the BIDS validator on OpenNeuro and on the BIDS validator page should be the same, but sometimes they're slightly different. And so here it's running a slightly different version that's giving me an error for event file. So I'm going to go back to the folder and double check what's wrong. And I realized that the BIDS Explorer did export an event file. It's a global event file that was empty. So I just removed it and ran the BIDS validator again, and now it was all fine. Then the next step for uploading is to enter some information. So the DOI of the paper, which I found online, the type of data. I also need to copy the paper information, which I found in PubMed, the type of subjects, and the grant. Here I enter block design for the type of data, and I press upload. And now we see it's uploading the data. And I circled here the progress bar. But actually the data is so big, 54 gigabytes. And even for small data set, this upload on the web option has never worked for me. I decided to give it up and just do it from the command line. The advantage of the command line is that also if you upload partially the data, it's going to, you can resume the upload. You don't have to restart from scratch. And it took about a night, and there was a bunch of error here. So that's the advantage of the command line, is that you can try to re-upload the dataset which had a problem uploading. So I typed the command. I had to search online to find the correct command because you have to enter the name of the dataset. So and here it's telling me, okay, these files need to be uploaded. That's the difference with what's online and not online. And this time it worked perfectly. So then I went back to OpenNeuro, to my account, and I could see this unnamed dataset. So that's the one I just uploaded. And so I decided to create a version of it to release it, because once it's on OpenNeuro, it's just a draft. It's not an official version. So I had to enter all the information again. So the same thing that when I was trying to upload it from the website, because this didn't retain the information. And so I submitted the metadata. It was automatically associated with this data set. Before releasing the data, there's actually a collection of datasets, some collection of questionnaire that I wanted to include. So I created a source data folder, and I copied, these were Excel file, and then there was one file per tradition of meditation. I added a README file describing the Excel file in the folder, and then I copied the file in the folder. These are all how the Excel file looked like. So there's many questionnaire. They did 2 hours of questionnaire each subject.
So it's not really organized, and really we should be in the participant.tsv file along with the participant information. But I don't have the courage to do that right now. But I still want to include the files, so I'm going to put them in this source data folder so people have them. And then I might go back and create a new release of this dataset with this additional information formatted in the participant.tsv file. And I'm going to re-upload the file again using the command line. So it's telling me these files are new. And this time it's really quick. It just takes a couple of seconds. And now I have all the files. So I'm ready to do a release. So I press the button to create a snapshot. And unfortunately on Chrome, this froze. So I waited for a couple of minutes and then nothing happened. So I decided to go on Firefox instead. So I logged in on my account on Firefox. All the metadata was already saved. And then I pressed the button to create a new revision of this dataset. I indicated this was a major revision. And I indicated, the changelog was the original version. I closed the Chrome window, and then I created that version. And so it just took a couple of seconds, and now the data is released. I hope you enjoyed this video, seeing me struggle through the different steps of formatting and uploading BIDS data to OpenEuro. And please let me know in the comments if you like this format, and thank you for watching.